Hey, beautiful. So today I want to share with you something that very commonly affects people with health issues. This could be you. So, chronic snoring or potential sleep apnea. I'm going to break down the difference between them today. And also talk about the symptoms that you would be experiencing if snoring and or sleep apnea was an issue for you. And there's a lot that can happen in your body that can be really impacting your health, and if your snoring and sleep apnea remain unaddressed, it's really hard to get to a healing transformational stage, which is why I want to share this with you. It's really important information from kids to adults to elders in our community. Please take some notice. If you find this information helpful, I would love you to share it. Of course, the more that these kind of health discussions get out and about, I feel like the healthier and better our entire world can be. And who doesn't want our entire world having a little more capacity for kindness, generosity, warmth, relationship building? I certainly do. And so, what's the difference between snoring and sleep apnea? So, snoring is occurring when like our tissues in our throat and our airway basically flap against each other, and that creates a sound. Sleep apnea, like the notable difference is that it involves pauses in breathing during sleep. And so not all snorers have sleep apnea, but most people with like nearly all people with sleep apnea snore. And the main difference is that sleep apnea involves reduced oxygen levels and many different arousals from sleep, while simple, like light snoring doesn't. And there's a difference between, light snoring where someone still has a very restful sleep and wakes up feeling refreshed, and snoring that is becoming an issue for that person, becoming a problem for that person. And you'll notice also with any snoring that it's disruptive for your partner, for your family, for your friend, like, for other beings that might be sharing space with the snorer, that can be a problem. So there's disrupted kind of quality of life, quality of relationships. And obviously, if there's any particular disruptions in sleep quality, that manifestation accelerates over time. Like the more tired we are, the less capacity that we have for life and kindness and warmth and generosity. And so any snoring on a continued basis, I do believe, warrants some addressing, because it could be a sign of underlying health issues. And that's what's important. And definitely, the more chronic the snoring is, the more concerns I would have as a health practitioner. And so, danger signs, I guess, just, for simple snoring. And this is also related to kids. Yeah. And I'm going to break down a whole lot of reasons why snoring can happen and different strategies that we can put in place to help. But loud snoring with periodic pauses in breathing, if there's any gasping, if there's any choking, that is a significant sign. I really just want to make sure that that's understood. If there's excessive daytime sleepiness and fatigue, that's a sign that there's something going on while you're sleeping at night and it's not working for your body. There's not enough rest. And if there's not enough rest, there's not enough repair. And that's going to be a problem for a body over time. Yeah. If there's morning headaches and a dry mouth, that's a sign that you're sleeping with your mouth open, you're not nasal breathing. And I'll talk about the difference between nasal breathing and mouth breathing in a moment. There's also going to be difficulty concentrating and memory problems. And certainly for a lot of kids these days and adults with ADHD diagnosis, I have, put a big question mark over whether mouth breathing at nighttime is one of the major contributing factors to that, and potentially that some of the activities that are being accessed during the day that are leading to some of these dysregulated patterns of sleeping and breathing overnight. So there's going to be some mood changes, irritability, like these changes in focus obviously change the way that we're interacting with the world. There's also going to be frequent nighttime urination, and maybe for kids, even wetting the bed. And it's so interesting, when I found out a lot of this information and I look back across the course of my life, I had issues with sleeping my entire life. I'm sleeping much better now, as a grown up than I ever have before because of the strategies that I've implemented in my life. And I really feel I have so much compassion for my little child, the younger version of Pia that and her family that had no idea what was going into her daytime disruptions, um, and inability to really stay focused and present and aware and be a good girl, and nighttime, like just massive sleep disruptions, night terrors, bedwetting, all of that kind of stuff, which just kind of kept the whole family looping in a big stress response. Yeah. And the more stressed a little body is, the more challenging health outcomes are over the course of a lifetime, which is another reason why I like sharing this conversation. Um, and so hopefully it's clear that the difference between, just simple snoring and sleep apnea is the actual pauses in breathing. That's the difference with sleep apnea. And it's very much a non-refreshing sleep, whereas simple light snoring can still allow good, restful, repairing, transformative sleep. And so that's important. Um, People also are going to notice changes in even weight gain, and cardiovascular problems, a risk of higher blood pressure. Maybe there's going to be irregular heartbeats. And if you think about irregular heartbeats, I mean, if anyone's here listening has ever had a panic attack, you can understand that if there's changes in your breath rhythm, your breath rate, and then your heartbeat, that can just unconsciously be leading you into a situation where all of a sudden you're like, I'm so overwhelmed. I don't know what's going on in my body. I feel so uncomfortable in my body. I'm actually freaking out and I don't know what to do. And sleep apnea and or chronic, excessive snoring can absolutely be part of that profile. So for people who have got metabolic issues, hormonal issues, fertility issues, libido issues, type 2 diabetes, pre-diabetes, insulin resistance, fatty liver disease, these are all going to be related partly to the hormonal changes that are happening at night because you're unable to fully rest, to fully sleep, to fully repair, and all different sorts of hormonal programs are running at the incorrect time. There's basically chaotic signaling coming from the way that the breath is moving through the body or unable to move through the body. And this is why I want to break down some of the reasons why, because if any of the things that I've just said are going on, there are going to be neurological issues. There is going to be cognitive impairment. There is going to be memory problems. And overall, it will increase the risk of dementia or other neurodegenerative disorders over time. Another reason why I like sharing this information and I feel like it's really valuable to know. And, we all know that mental health prevalence is rising across our globe in amounts and numbers that we've never seen before, even though we've got, more medications and, more solutions and more global education. There are some big, big issues in our populations. And so chronic snoring and sleep apnea are both related to depression, anxiety, and mood changes. And of course, there's going to be other health risks, and partly because of some of the reasons that set people up for chronic snoring and sleep apnea, is going to be increased risk of certain cancers. There's also going to be complications with healing, and that means that if you're booked for a surgery or you had an accident and some sort of trauma occurred in your body, your healing capabilities are lessened. There's also, in terms of like work productivity across our globe, there's absolutely decreased work performance. And that's stressful for individuals, businesses, communities, populations of people. Yeah. And so I hope this has made it more heightened for you as something to be aware of and concerned about. And so why is breathing through your mouth an issue? And it's a little bit like my conversations that I have around water. When we're breathing through our nose, we've got a filtration system, an inbuilt filtration system. It is amazing. And I'm not going to branch out into all the details of that today. But when you're breathing through the mouth, you've skipped that part. And it's a little like if you don't filter your water, your body ends up being the filter. And so when you're breathing through your mouth and not through your nose, instead of having all of the specific areas of filtration support that we have through our nasal passages, we completely blindside that, and we're just breathing through our mouth, making our body the filter. Does that make sense? And so when we're just opening our mouth and using our mouth, we also will decrease how much saliva is in there. That will increase dysbiosis. And I don't know if you know this, but like our mouth is a window into the rest of our body. It's like the first portal in, yeah. If there is dysbiosis in our mouth, there will be dysbiosis and other digestive issues lower down in the system. And that's a problem for a body. And the other thing that we're not receiving when we're breathing through our mouth is nitric oxide production. And again, it's another big topic. I'm not going to go off into the details of that, but basically nitric oxide helps, dilate blood flow in our body and makes the passage of blood much easier to all of the different areas that it needs to. So it'll decrease blood pressure and improve nutrient availability and it's really, really necessary. When we're breathing through our mouth, we miss the nitric oxide production that happens through our nose, but the dysbiosis that's happening here also creates a marked decrease in nitric oxide production systemically through our body. And so that, as it builds up over time, is another issue for our system. I also just want to add here that if you are using fluoride toothpaste or mouthwash daily or almost daily, that will also change your oral microbiome, decreasing your nitric oxide production. And when you don't have enough nitric oxide in your body, it does change what's happening in your respiration and your ability to, move oxygen through your body. So hopefully that makes sense. And so when you're breathing through your mouth, what happens is you're also generally going to decrease how much oxygen availability you have through your body and increase how much carbon dioxide you have building up in your system. That's part of why there's excessive movement at night and wanting to get up and urinate, and the gasping and the choking. Like, they're all signals that the body is trying to bring in more oxygen and release some of this carbon dioxide buildup. And there's a whole host of other things that are happening inside of the body that are basically creating inflammation as those two things go on. But I'm sure that you can imagine, because our brain, it's only 2% of our body weight, but it takes up about 20% of our oxygen needs. During the day, if we haven't had, enough oxygen at night, there's a lot of different changes that happen through the structures of our brain. And they might start off really small, but again, over time, that's going to be an issue for the brain. And, you've got brain fog, brain cloudiness, and, if you're having night sweats and movement during the night and you're not sleeping, everything becomes very additive. Yeah? Has any of this ever happened for you, or do you know someone that this is applicable to? The other thing that happens when we're not sleeping well at night in terms of flow in our body, and nitric oxide is part of this flow, is we have something called the lymphatic system, which is like our brain's special lymphatic system. And so the clearance of different toxins from our whole brain area overnight isn't happening as well. So that's just another thing that's going on. When we've changed our breathing rhythm and our breath rate, and we've moved from nose breathing to mouth breathing, we also use our diaphragm in a different way. And when we're not using our diaphragm, because we're lying down at nighttime, we're quite sedentary, there is our reliance on that to in some ways still keep moving lymph fluid through the rest of our body, through our abdomen. That supports our immune system and our detoxification processes and lipid transport through our body. There are still things that are happening while we're asleep that are meant to be very, very helpful. And if we're missing out on those components, again, you can understand that that's another issue for your body. Yeah. And when we have these kind of changes going on, and we've got this sort of restlessness in our night, and we're kind of waking up in these different circumstances, whether you get fully awake or not, you are increasing how much cortisol you have in your system. So cortisol is one of our stress hormones. So basically, it's putting your body in a system of overactivation during the night. Because you've had elevated cortisol during the night, it's going to be very challenging for your body to keep making enough cortisol to give you enough cortisol rise in the morning, and to keep that cortisol, pretty fluid during the day until it drops again in the afternoon. Those changes in the cortisol distribution change every single one of your other hormones and how they're functioning and how they're working. And so what you'll notice during the next days, you'll have changes in your appetite, you'll have changes in food cravings, you'll have um, changes also just in your feeling of safety in your body, like how uncomfortable you feel in your body, a sense of feeling restless in your body, quite hypervigilant, kind of always, looking around, checking things out, being aware, like kind of where's the threat coming from next? What's going on next? You get quite myopic. It's really challenging to open up your perspective and to really be present. It's really challenging to be very present when there's cortisol dysregulation. And again, the more that's been building up over time because of these interrupted sleep patterns, because of the changes in breath rhythm and respiratory access, that means that that person is going to be stuck in hypervigilance, and they're getting these constant cues, basically, that I'm kind of unsafe, that there's a danger, that there's a threat. Now, you can imagine again over time that that might change that person's posture a little. Yeah. Like I know that when I've been really stressed and feeling pretty threatened, I tend to curl inwards a little bit. I tend to, tend to clench my jaw. I just get really tight. And so the tighter my body is, again, the more that changes our respiratory access, the more it changes the signaling through our body. And as soon as we start kind of closing down in our chest, we've got a lot more pressure through our heart and our vascular system and our lymphatic system. And again, there's just kind of this looping response that goes on. So I feel like that's probably enough little reasons. What I want to talk about is, what can we do? What are some strategies to help, to at least start supporting the body? You can go heaps more down the line. There's all sorts of functional breathing and breathing biomechanics and sleep specialists. I absolutely feel that they can be very, very supportive. And I want to offer you some strategies just to start with today. So, what do they know about sleeping and respiratory issues? Is that they're very much interrelated with something called circadian biology. Circadian basically means about a day, and it's the endogenous or internal rhythms that our body follows every single day and every single night, hopefully. Now, those rhythms can get really out of sync, really out of cue, really disharmonic when we have a lot of artificial light exposure. And that artificial light exposure, particularly at night, is a big problem for our body, and particularly if we're trying to sleep. So our eyes and our skin are very, very sensitive to light cues. So if you have the opportunity to really black out your bedroom, that is an amazing thing to start doing. So as much as you can control your light environment in the lead up to sleep, so, blocking blue light, changing the angle of the lights, turning overhead lights off, no screen time, hopefully, or if you are watching screens, having amber or red blue blocking glasses on to support you, to support your eyes, to support melatonin production and decrease cortisol production. Because if you go to bed with an increased cortisol level because of light exposure, it's going to already be changing your breath rate and your breath rhythm and your ability to be able to access a soft, parasympathetic, restful repair state. Yeah? Does that make sense? The other thing that they know about chronic snoring and sleep apnea is that eating late is a big problem. Eating late. So, what is eating late? Really, how I view it, kind of wherever you live in the world, if you can eat around about 1 or 2 hours before the sun goes down, that's awesome. If you can't, maybe eating as the sun goes down, and definitely not eating 3 to 4 hours before bed. Giving your digestive system a chance to process a lot of the food before you lie down will change your cortisol levels. They will be decreased by the time that you go to bed. If you eat late, it will impact your breathing. It will impact sleep apnea. It will change those endogenous rhythms of your body. It resets that circadian clock, and not in a helpful way. Does that make sense? One of the other factors that I know makes a huge difference is just accessing morning light, natural sunlight when you are outside with bare eyes and bare skin showing as much as possible for as long as possible, basically. That does also help set up your biorhythms at the start of the day, which makes it easier for your body to stay accessing that harmonic rhythm by the end of the day. So that's just another simple strategy to implant. And maybe just have a think about what you just learnt from that. You're going to block the light out from your room. That might even mean covering, like if you've got lights, like little, what are they called? Indicator lights coming from anywhere, blocking them out. Blue blocking curtains, blackout curtains, having the door shut, really good ventilation, a cold room, like those kind of sleep hygiene practices are really, really important. And there are also numerous ways that you can set yourself up for your body to understand that it's, cueing itself for a restful time. Eating earlier rather than later is really, really important. And then also accessing morning light every day. They're just kind of 3 ways that you can already start. Something else that you might not know about when it comes to the way that you're breathing is that your feet are really intimately related to that process. So if you wake up in the morning and your feet are sore, if you know that you fall in on your arches, if you've ever had kind of trauma to your feet and your calves are really tight, I absolutely invite you to start massaging your feet. Your feet have got 26 bones. I don't know if you've ever heard this. There's an old saying that says death begins in the feet. Somewhat true, because you've got fascia lines through your body that are basically listening to how tight your feet and your calves are. If they are really, really tight, they'll pull down on the rest of your body. They'll pull down through your pelvis. They'll pull down through your abdomen. They'll pull down through your diaphragm, making it much more challenging to access a beautiful breath. And that's the same if you're really tight through your pecs, your sternum, and underneath your diaphragm through your intercostal muscles. It's again going to make it really challenging to access a really great breath rhythm. So massaging your feet, your calves could be really, really helpful for you. Massaging in and around and underneath your diaphragm, intercostals, which is like the little muscles between your rib bones, your sternum, across your chest. Again, really, really helpful points to start working with, getting to know your own body better, really showing up for your body, getting more intimately connected from skin to within, and also really noticing what you've been holding on to. When I massage myself, I'm like, oh, darling, didn't realize that there was so much pain there, or you're really tender there. I'm just offering you some love. I'm creating more safety in my body as I touch you. I'm with you. I'm see you, I hear you, I feel you, I value you. When we really show up for our body in these kind of ways, you can imagine that the relationship that we have with our body becomes more fruitful, more loving, more harmonious. Yeah. When we have more aligned posture, when we've got more stability through our feet, it's much easier during the day and again through the night, if you were to wake up, to just kind of be like, okay, where am I in time and space? What is my posture doing right now? How can I align my body in a way that feels more supportive? And the more support that you offer your body over time, the easier that is to notice. I certainly know that that's been very true for me. The more connected that I've been to my body over time, I really easily notice when I'm out of alignment now, and it's much easier to kind of pull me back into alignment. So the work is worth it. Like showing up for yourself is so worth it. And so I'm just going to come into conclusion. I feel like I've offered, quite a few different tips and strategies and things to notice. What I haven't spoken about is mouth tape. Some people find that quite a shocking measure. And you could, if you did find that that was quite a lot for your body at nighttime, you could practice with mouth tape during the day. So while were walking around or even doing light exercise, just getting used to that mouth tape being on during the day could be a strategy to help your body settle into utilizing the mouth tape at night. There's also mouth tape that is a circular tape that does leave a gap for your mouth, that's working with the muscles here just to encourage them to stay shut. So there's also that option as well. And was there something else I wanted to say about mouth tape? I feel like there was something else I was going to say about mouth tape, but I'm just going to let that go because I was coming into conclusion. And so, oh, yeah. So when you are exercising, that's right. That's what I wanted to say. Anytime that you are doing some light or even heavy, to moderate to intense exercise, the more that you practice breathing in and out through your nose and not using your mouth, the more helpful that is also. It's a way of retraining our system. So I'm just going to repeat that. If you can keep your mouth closed during different levels of exercise and keep it closed for as much as you can, so you're just utilizing your nose, you're going to really improve your body's connection to your nasal passages, to endogenous or like internally made nitric oxide production, to your filtration system, like all of these different things. If that's a challenge for you, then that's a really good thing to start noticing. And again, there's lots of different strategies that, we can put in place to support your body opening up those kind of areas. But it's just something to play around with as you're working to improve your snoring and or your sleep apnea. I feel like my job here is done. Of course, hit me up with any questions. Share with me any insights. I'd love to hear if you learned anything new or different or that got you thinking. If you did find these helpful, please like it, please share it, please comment. It makes a really big difference to me in my life and my ability to continue to share. Thank you so very much. And I look forward to sharing again with you very soon.